inside the off stump. Oh, he's caught it! I don't believe it! Tom Kohler-Cadmore has caught the most magnificent catch. That short third man is the end of Daniel Sams, and Somerset have won the Vitality Blast 2023. They've bowled Essex out for 131.
Good evening, you're listening to Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. This is the Somerset Cricket Podcast. My name's Ian Shepherd. Joining me this evening, I've got Steve Tancock and the voice of cricket on BBC Radio Somerset, Anthony Gibson. Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. Metrobank One Day Cup superfan Dan Kingdom is delayed in transit, but will be joining us very shortly. Big news of the week then, guys, I suppose, is George Bartlett announced as departing for pastures new up at Wantage Road, joining another Somerset exile, Ollie Sale. He signed a 3-year deal for Northants. What on earth do we make of that?
Well, it wasn't a complete surprise, was it?
No. Well, I know it wasn't, Gibbo, because I told you about 3 days before Somerset released it. But, I mean, it kind of was and it kind of wasn't, because he was the incumbent out of that trio of Goldsworthy, Banton and himself. So that kind of led you to believe that he was, earmarked for that particular slot for, the foreseeable, maybe not the long term, but definitely the short and medium term. But I don't know. I mean, it was a 3-year deal that he got offered, so you'd have to suspect that was the major pull factor. I don't know if it's been,
and I think playing white ball cricket as well. Playing in the Blast and playing all formats. I think that was probably a factor as well.
Yeah, because
you'll have more opportunities at Northants. You'll be a much bigger fish in a smaller pool up there.
Less pressure.
Yeah, it's a good club, and he's got a 3-year contract. And I hope he does well. It's, he hasn't, when I was thinking, Matt, was it 2017 he made that 100 up a little?
Yeah. 2016, I think.
There was one at Trent Bridge. A few of my friends went to see it and they were really impressed with him.
But him and Abel both got
against Gloucester as well in the Bob Willis Trophy year 2020. Partnership with Tom Abel. We just looked at different class.
But he looked like he was playing on a different pitch to everybody else. That 100 against Gloucester, nobody else got any runs at all for Somerset on in that game. But they've been the exceptions, unfortunately, rather than the rule. And if you look at his career as a whole, which goes back as quite a few years now, he hasn't fulfilled his potential. And from that point of view, rather like with Jamie Overton, it's probably just as well from his point of view that he moves on. And probably he'll do very well at Northants in the same way that Jamie Overton has done very well at Surrey.
But do we want George Bartlett to do well for Northants at the expense for doing well for Somerset, if you see what I mean? Because obviously at Surrey, Azam Mahmood, the bowling coach, got the best out of Jamie Overton, made him into a different player, made him into an international player. We didn't seem to manage to get that done down at Somerset. I know it all, barring a miracle, Northants are going to be in Division 2 next year, so I don't know how much the selectors count Division 2 runs. But would Bartlett possibly, I don't know, could somebody get hold of Bartlett in the way that Shane Berger and Lachlan Stevens weren't able to? Because it's patently obvious the faults in George Bartlett's game is that he just likes going for a wander early on in his innings until he settles himself down. And he can play some absolutely beautiful shots.
My question for you both is, seeing as and we've talked on the pod quite a lot this season about Banton or Goldsworthy coming into that position in the order, yet he's kept his place, which means that the coaches have backed him. And then there obviously for them wasn't any. It's one of the two things, isn't it? Either there wasn't any semblance of he's thinking of going and we're not going to renew his contract, or on the other hand, it was he is a bit wavering, so we've got to play him and give him a chance. But To be honest, but the shame now is, I was looking at the team for Sunday and thinking, well, who are you going to put in that slot? Are you going to give Banton a go? Are you going to give Abel a go? Are you going to drop Lammonby down and get Omid to open? But it seems like we spent more than 2/3 of the season, was it 11/14 of the season, backing George, and now he's going, which seems a bit off to me. There's something that's not quite right in my brain. Maybe I'm just being too maroon and black.
Was his Somerset contract up at the end of this season?
Yeah,
Yes,
so
I
he got a
believe
1
so.
year. He had a 1 year extension at the end of last season. And I suppose my response to your question, Steve, would be, I'm probably now in exactly the same position regarding George Bartlett than I was, on the 31st of August 2023, and that he's a marvelously talented guy with a huge potential ceiling, but he's just too inconsistent, and he just doesn't seem to have rid himself of these technical foibles. Which is, the same place as we were a year ago. So if we're in the same place, I guess the response from the club has to be the same, that we don't feel that we're in a position to offer you a longer term deal. I mean, I assume he was offered a contract at the bare minimum. I wouldn't have thought he would be, taking his place in the Championship side if we had an intention of releasing him.
No. So you've got to assume it was another 1 year roll.
Maybe two.
He didn't want that.
And much as the guys say they love Somerset, and I genuinely do believe that when players like the George Bartlett in the sort of statements they put out when they're leaving say, I love playing at Somerset and the fans are great and the supporters, but I genuinely believe that they are telling the truth when they say that, and they are not necessarily all mercenaries. But at the same time, you have to say that it's his living, and if another employer has offered him a 3-year deal with the potential to play white ball cricket, I mean, let's be fair, he's a million miles away from breaking into Somerset's T20 team.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty simple choice from Bartlett's perspective, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's from the player's point of view, it's the original no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's, I don't think he won't, same with pretty much everybody that leaves Taunton, really. Don Best, Jamie Overton, I don't think anybody's any players are really left under a cloud in recent years. So
I think any sporting club, it's very important that you allow players to leave in a good way, because when you're trying to encourage a young player to sign. I've not got a name, but let's say there's some youngster at another county that we might be talking to for next season. They're going to be looking and thinking, do you know what? If it doesn't work out for me, they've been really good about letting players move on, and I think that's an important thing as well. And I think 'twas ever thus with Somerset. I can't really remember many departures. Here's a quick question for you, Gibbo. You'll know this one. The last Somerset batsman to leave for Northamptonshire?
George Bartlett.
No,
sorry,
George
before,
Bartlett, you muppet.
I was going to say Roy
Virgin, the fact that you asked,
it's the other way around.
Well, asked Gibbo instead of me, so this is going to be before my time, I suspect. So you have the floor, Gibbo.
Well, I don't know. Roy Virgin? He came the other way, didn't he?
That's the name I had. Yeah, he left, didn't he?
I thought he came from Northants to Somerset.
He went to North. I remember it. I was in very early years of my supporting, and he was England's 12th man in 71, I think, in a Test match, and then left the year after that.
He's president of the Northamptonshire County Club now.
Is he? Oh.
Yeah.
There you go,
and according to Andrew Rad, a really nice guy. I've never met him, but I watched quite a lot of him back in the late 60s.
He was very close to opening for England for a couple of years, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Hey ho.
But it was a bit of a shocker because, well, I'll not say a shocker, but it was disappointing because you kind of felt like this is a sort of a breakthrough season for George, because he's got those hundreds against Middlesex, 100 against Notts,
But
then if you look at the stats, he's still only averaging 30. So it's, as you said earlier, Steve, 'twas ever thus. It's, a definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And, you can only give players so many opportunities. And, it's a little bit sad, but hey-ho. But, we do wish you all the best of at Wantage Road, George. Anything else to say on the George Bartlett?
No, I don't think
this
so.
Week?
Just you always go with your initial reaction, and I think mine was sad but not surprised, because I still held out the hope that he was going to fulfil the potential. But
you always had him earmarked as Hildreth's replacement, didn't you, Steve? Long term.
Yes, yeah, and I still think he has the technical capability to play like that and just be such a joy to watch, because when he is going well, he's an absolute joy to watch. But I suppose the question now is who's going to fill that slot for the rest of the season, because I can't believe do we know if he's going to Northampton for the end of the season, or is he staying with us?
He's joining them during the winter, I think it said.
Right.
But I would be very surprised.
Yes, so would I. I'd be very surprised if he's picked.
It makes eternal. It really does make sense for him to go on loan now, I think, because we have partially cleared that logjam of contracted batters that we've talked about with him, Lewis Goldsworthy and Tom Banton all fighting for that one slot in the middle order. So we are going to have to put either Goldsworthy, Banton, or indeed Lammonby into that number 4 slot. Yeah. So why delay the inevitable? And I think it would make sense for the player to go on loan to his new club for the rest of the season.
But of course, the curveball is, because Umeed had such a stellar one-day cup, it's going to be a tough conversation to say to him, you're not going to open in the championship or bat 4 in the championship even.
Is this to Lammonby?
Well, if it was me, I would give Umeed the rest of the season opening and bat Lammers at 4. And Anthony said he thinks he should be opening consistently, both on the pod and in commentary. And do we like the sound of a Dixon Umeed opening partnership for the last 3 games, or does that not fill either of you with any joy? I've not got 2 smiley faces on the other end of this call.
It doesn't fill me with confidence.
Well, it's because about 2 minutes ago I said that we cleared this logjam of contracted middle order batters,
and I've just put someone else.
And you just Andy Umeed has had this incredible one-day cup campaign, scoring 672 runs at 80 odd and 300s, 172 out against Derbyshire, some absolutely incredible numbers. He has absolutely 100% earned the right to open the batting for Somerset on Sunday down at the Ageas Bowl.
They've got to play him on Sunday. They really have to.
Else it just makes a mockery of the sort of the meritocracy sport. If you don't reward players who are scoring runs, I mean, the season has not panned out ideally for Tom Lammonby in any way, shape or form. No. He's completely lost his form in the Blast, which then meant he wasn't even barely considered for selection up in the other competition. And then circumstances, I think, contrived to just not let him be released for any of these Metrobank one-day cup games that he could have really done with a knock. And now he's, coming up to the last 3 games of the season. It's not a particularly crucial 3 games. Somerset should be safe, but he's probably not picked up a bat for the best part of 6 weeks.
It would be a big call to play him on Sunday. It would be an even bigger call to open with him on Sunday, I think. I think he'd probably be better off going away, clearing his head, having a winter away somewhere, and then coming back fresh in the spring now, and give Goldsworthy or Banton or someone an opportunity in the Bartlett slot.
Yeah, yes, because I mean, if with his Aussie family connections, Lammonby, I'm sure he could find a club in about 2 minutes Sydney, I think his family are from. So yeah, I mean, what do you put? I mean, I think we're all fairly certain then that we are opening with Umeed and Dixon, Abel at 3, question mark still at 4, TKC, Rue, Gregory, Overton, Wagner, Bashir, and then Aldridge / Davey.
What about Roloff?
He's in the CPL.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's finished or not. But yeah, we did discuss this last week, didn't we? If it's a typical Ageas Bowl pitch, you may need 2 spinners, which
Don Best might be on his way down from Harrogate.
We probably get Don. Yeah, we'll get Don Best back, or Vic Marks might come out of retirement. Who knows what's going on with things at the moment. I mean, I suppose who is our only other spin? Would be Goldsworthy, wouldn't it? I suppose.
Yes.
Really, our only
I've
other.
got Goldsworthy in on the basis that he'll be the only spin bowler. He's the only spin bowler.
Okay.
I'm not going to play Bashir against Hampshire.
You're not.
Right.
No, I think well we've got Overton, Davey, Wagner, Gregory, Aldridge. We've got enough bowlers. I don't think Goldsworthy isn't going to take many wickets, and Roloff had the
Well, I mean, he is still yet to take his. He is still yet to take his maiden. Oh, Dan's arrived. Let Dan in, 2 minutes late.
Yeah.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, guys. Sorry I'm late. Trains.
Dan looks like he's done a 5K to get to his computer.
Pretty much.
How was it in the rainy old Midlands, Dan? Obviously, it's rainy.
Was it a bit? Yeah.
So we have discussed the George Bartlett departure at reasonable length, and we're now just about on to. Are you playing him at Hampshire on Sunday, or are you going against the grain?
Sorry.
Does he make your 11 for Sunday?
Oh, Bartlett. Yeah. Yeah. I would leave him out and play Goldsworthy. I think. I would also bring in Umeed for Lammonby. I think Goldsworthy's the one who's. I know we'd all love to see Banton play as well, but I think Goldsworthy was really good last year. Once he came back into the side, the runs he scored, they were so valuable. It's mad to me that he's not played at all this season. So he'd be the first man to come in for me.
One thing we haven't said yet is he did have a pretty decent one-day cup as well, Lewis Goldsworthy. I think he averaged exactly 50.
Yeah, he was sort of solid, wasn't he? He didn't sort of go on to make any big scores, from what I remember. But yeah, he sort of scored a decent number of runs each time. He's just earned his place. He must be so annoyed at the moment all season. I know he has had injuries, but that's not been the only reason he's not been playing. He's just been left out of the team, and obviously Curler, Cadmore and Dixon coming in is obviously what sort of squeezed him out. And then obviously Bartlett got the first game and sort of did well enough to sort of stay in the team. But yeah, I'd get him back in because he was so good last year. It was a real breakthrough for him, and I think his progress has been stunted a bit this year, sadly.
It's not like he's an unknown quantity that he's just graduated out of the academy that we're discussing bringing in. I wouldn't say he's quite a proven championship performer, but he's a solid guy. You know what you're going to get with him.
If he does come back in, what's the spread on the word Camborne being used over the 4 days, though, or Cornwall or something?
Well, it'll depend.
It's got to get. Anthony's got his quota to make up for the season, so he's going to have to use.
Yeah, I was going to say it depends on where there's a lull in play when Gibbo and Kevin James start discussing the birthplaces of their respective 11s. And Gibbo says, "Oh, we're all born in Somerset," and then Kevin James says, "Oh, what about Lewis Goldsworthy? He was born in Camborne."
Yeah, well, there are fewer and fewer actually of our lot born in Somerset, and there are probably more Hampshire players now born in Hampshire than there are Somerset ones born in Somerset.
Oh, you can't have that.
Well, I'm afraid that's the way it's going.
Well, I think we can claim the West Country. Anything southwest of Bristol, we kind of claim as Somerset.
Yeah,
and the western half of Dorset as well. 3, 4. Yeah.
It's
Because
Casey.
my
all
only
I've
question
got.
is,
Casey,
is Lewis? Sorry, Gibbo, is Lewis Gregory fit? Do we know? Because that's always a question mark, isn't it? Having not watched the other competition, I don't know how far the yellow and orange got, whether he played in all the games, and did he bowl? Or...
I believe he did.
bowled a bit, yeah. He didn't bowl too much. He seems to be fit. Captained them very well, as from what I can gather, as ever. Got a few runs, but none of our lot really got any runs at all.
Ray got a bit of a hamstring tweak, but now he's okay.
He seems to be all right. Is Aldridge going to be fit?
You'd hope so, because he deserves his place on performances he put in July, really.
Not really heard anything to contrary. I'd assume the nature of his injury. What was it he had? Is it a side strain?
Side strain,
yeah. So he missed the whole of the One Day Cup. So
But
He kept
maybe
very
time
close
to
to
heal by
selection,
now.
though.
But
He'd be in my
once or
side
twice.
anyway.
Yeah, he was in the squad once or twice in the One Day Cup. He seemed very close to selection. Just never quite got there. Obviously, Josh Davey just about did in the last game, so we know he's fit now. It might come
Josh
down
Davey-
to being
I
between
thought Josh
Davey
Davey
and
bowled well
Davey
at
and
Derby.
Tracy.
Yeah. I've got
If,
Umi, Dixon, Abel, Goldsworthy, TKC, Rue, Gregory, and then Aldridge if he's fit, and Ben Green if he's not fit.
okay,
Overton,
go Ben
Davey,
Green.
Wagner.
So you're going Ben Green instead of Shoaib Bashir.
no, he said Green if Aldridge wasn't fit.
You need to pack your batting as much as possible, and you know that means we're batting down to number 10 with Josh Davey, and I think that's against that.
I think that's very sensible.
We're not going to beat Hampshire down at the Ageas Bowl, but we really we don't want to lose.
How do you know, Gibbo? We were going to get
And we want to get a few batting
stuffed
points.
against Hampshire the week before the last finals day when we rested half the team and it was doom and gloom. Oh, we're going to get stuffed, and we nearly beat them. So you never know. Hope springs eternal.
Did you include Neil Wagner, Anthony?
Yeah, I did. He's at number 11.
Okay. So was it Wagner, Overton, Gregory, Aldridge, Bashir was the bowling attack?
No, not
Bashir. It's all we've got Goldsworthy to bowl some left arm spin if we're desperate.
Okay.
And then Gregory, Aldridge or Green, Overton, Davey and Wagner.
Right.
So basically 5.
Gibbo's frozen. Yeah, I mean, you've got to have a look at the pitch Sunday morning, but I think it's going to be highly unlikely that you're not going to need a spinner at the Ageas Bowl. And as decent a bowler as he is, Lewis, let's not forget that Lewis Goldsworthy is still yet to take a championship wicket.
But Bashir hasn't exactly been setting the world on fire.
No, but he's. I mean, I suppose you could say. I mean, it was a bit like when England didn't want to play Jack Leach last year because 2 years ago when they felt that their seam attack was a far better way to go. So perhaps they'll do that. I don't think they will. I think they will. I think they will play Bashir.
So who are you going to drop then? Which of the seamers are you going to drop?
So I've got Gregory, Overton, Aldridge, or Davey. I could flip a coin. I think Davies would be more suited to bowling at the Ageas Bowl, but
I worry about him.
If Aldridge is fit,
he's only played the one day cup game.
Yeah, so it would be ideal if there was a second 11 game this week, just for him to have a run out, at least in one innings, maybe two, but probably just one.
Well, if Davies fit, he's a much better bowler than Casey Aldridge.
Yeah. Correct.
Right. And Aldridge is a better batsman than Josh Davey, although Josh Davey is a very capable batsman whose main problem is shot selection.
So we're all of a mind that it's Goldsworthy over Banton, yeah?
Reluctantly, yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I mean,
if it was me, I'd play Banton, but it's not me. it's it's Jason Kerr, and he won't play Banton. He'll play Goldsworthy, or possibly Lannonby.
Bowlers have scored runs in the One Day Cup, so it is what it is. I'm on the San Miguel list now, by the way. Did go looking for some decent cider around the old supermercados this morning. They had Magners and Strongbow, which is pretty disappointing.
I think I have seen patches abroad. I think I saw it in Malta.
Why don't you go down to the old cider house and get a takeaway? The old cider bar.
What?
Newton Abbott's most famous hostelry.
Yeah, but I'm in Lanzarote, Anthony. Can you not tell?
Oh, sorry.
There's a fucking palm tree over my left shoulder. Where do you think I was?
There you go. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Well, that's climate change for you. I thought,
Oh, yeah.
it already comes to Newton Abbott.
What's really scary is if Ian's at home, the block of flats that he now lives in, everyone's got the same colour towel.
Yes.
I must warn you now that mini disco's gone out. I think the mini disco starts in 3 minutes, so that's just over the way behind me. What was it talking about? Yeah. Magnus and Strongbow, which is a pretty poor effort for the Lanzarotean side of this. I'm on the San Miguel. Have we decided who we go for? Bash? Yeah, I'm Aldridge
I
Davey.
think we're split because I'm going to go Bashir and not pick Davey because I'm worried about Josh's fitness. But I totally take the point of Davey's fit.
I'm generally always going to base mine on if a player being 100%, if they're available and 100% fit. I mean, I know it would have been nice if he had a game this week, but Davey's not injured, so therefore he plays for me. I mean, he's 31, 32, so it's not like he's a rookie that needs 2 or 3 games to get himself back in the rhythm. He should be ready to go bang and off.
He bowled very well at Derby.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't bowl very many overs at Derby, but what he did bowl, he looked sharp. He looked miles the best bowler on display in that game for Somerset. They had a young quickie who was only 16 years old who looked very, very promising. Harry Moore, remember the name.
Maybe we could do a swap deal for Bartlett. You never know. Maybe that's going to be announced. He's on the way. Just as you dropped in late, Dan, what was your first reaction when you heard that confirmed via Somerset's social media and not from any other source?
Oh, from Bartlett, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I wasn't too surprised. I mean, he has done well this season. Scored 2 centuries, and he's obviously done well enough to to stay in the team. I think I was questioning his place. I think after Chelmsford-ish around that game, but then I think in the following game he scored a century. So yeah, he's done reasonably well this year, but it's just whether, I think presumably length of contract was a factor. We probably didn't want to give him a 3-year contract. Obviously he wants more white ball opportunities as well, and it's the good thing is that it does now sort of free up. There was a bit of a logjam of batters, wasn't there, with goals.
He was listening to us earlier, Shep.
I was going to say, he wasn't on the bloody train at all. He was sat in the waiting room. Yeah.
Oh, it's not great for the listeners, is it? Just repeating
great
the
minds,
same
Dan.
stuff.
Great minds, yeah.
It's because we're all just very
I suppose
clever.
it kind of goes to show that a lot of everyone's kind of read this situation to, there's not really much nuance to it. It's George Bartlett hasn't quite performed as well as he could, and we weren't prepared to give him a long-term deal in a club which is, barring a miracle, going to be in a lower division. Is once they've delivered, move on. Another departure from the Cooper Associates County Ground this week was announced today. Gordon Hollins is going to be off to pastures new. Well, he's certainly going to be standing down from his position as chief exec in March next year, I think. That's Anthony's cuckoo clock, signalling that it is 8 o'clock or thereabouts. Very melodic clock you got there in your study there, Gibbo. Yes, Gordon Hollins is going to be moving back up north, up to York, I believe, spending more time with his family after being in post for, I suppose it'll be 4 years, because he was dropped in somewhat difficult circumstances. I think he had about 2 weeks at the county ground, and then it was lockdown. Not a particularly easy start for Gordon, but I suppose you'd be glad to see the back of him, Gibbo, because he's never quite got your commentary position sorted.
No, well, I mean, he's a decent bloke. I think he's done a good job. Apart from the commentary position, but for the rest of it, I think he's been a much better chief executive than the previous one. Let's put it that way.
Who was that? Andrew
Cornish,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I had a rumour about how he got sacked, which I'll tell you when we stop recording. I think Gordon's always struck me as kind of a very sort of pragmatic fella. Never got too up with the highs, never got too down with the lows. I think he's always gone out of his way to do the sort of the members' Q's and A's on teams and that during the pandemic and such like. So yeah,
I think he'd be a hard act to follow. Actually, I think he's one of the sort of top 10% of county CEOs. He'll be difficult to replace him.
I think another thing with him is he obviously came from the ECB, and I think one of his sort of positive characteristics was that he was very level-headed in dealing with the ECB. He didn't sort of, other CEOs have.
He wasn't kind of awestruck by going to the Lords. It's like he'd sort of
he didn't rush off and write letters and emails to them at every opportunity. Is what Dan's trying to say.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if we get to see the new CEO, if there's someone who actually sort of maybe criticises the ECB a bit more. I think with the sort of the review last year, Hollins was very sort of like pragmatic about it, whereas some counties like Leicestershire, I remember, were quite critical of some of the recommendations and said, no, we're going to resist this. Whereas Hollins was more like, we'd rather sort of not like just accept them without thinking about it. But
he said, look at the whole package, didn't he? He said if you get a reduction in championship games, but that means you get an extra, I don't know, for argument's sake, 6 blast games, which is going to be, probably an extra £1 million in revenue to the club. Is that better? You have to, looking at it all in the round rather than just, members said, oh, we love our championship cricket, which we all do. We all do love our championship cricket, but
I think the next time the president's on the podcast, everyone who listens needs to just write the question, who's going to be the next chief executive? And that should just be like a barrage and see if he knows the answer. I know they said they've gone out to some sporting executive search organisation.
I don't know. I'm just trying to look it up on my phone now. Well, lest we forget that our president is currently a chief executive of a very major national body.
You heard it
one of our number has been a chief executive of a very prominent rural organisation. Yeah.
Too old.
We have the young dynamic Mr. Kingdom sat down there. Steve, you've got the financial experience. And me, I can talk shit with the best of them. So yeah, I think between the 5 of us, we could probably take it on. So let's do it.
CEO by committee.
Yeah, Gibbo, let's face it, it's probably the only way you're going to get your commentary box back is to actually run Somerset County Cricket Club. So first day in the job, I could just see you flinging Ben down the stairs of the press box and just taking up squatters' rights in the commentary box.
Yeah.
Oh dear, you can tell I'm all inclusive. I'm talking a phenomenal
If
amount of
Spencer's listening to this, probably every name that we've just mentioned, he'll, apart from Mr. Wanless, he'll be going, "Oh no, not possibly, no." Please
Because
not.
I'll tell you what, you'll get Spencer's support by offering to put us down a stair lift in at the moment, because I think he's dislocated his ankle as Paul Spencer. So if anything you can do to get him up to his seat in the press box without having to negotiate stairs, will no doubt be music to Spencer's ears. Right, listeners' questions then. Shall we move on to those unless we've got anything else to talk about cricket related? There's been much this week.
Been much cricket this week.
No, there's been plenty going on.
Liam Dawson is in useful form.
Yeah, Liam Dawson.
7 for 15, wasn't it, Dan?
That's weird. Why was he not in the other competition then? Because he's an international
player. He was.
Oh, he was. Oh, and then he came back to play in the semi-final.
Released. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. If for the knockouts, I think there was kind of a gentleman's agreement between the counties that if teams had injuries, they could bring in guys from the 100. So Luke Wells came in for Lancashire, Sam Hain came in for Warwickshire, Dawson came in for Hampshire, and I think one or two others did as well. Mason Crane did as well. So there was a few players to come in. But yeah, it's a bit weird how it's not sort of formalised, that kind of thing. I don't know. So, I just wait for the year when one team literally, let's call them maybe Surrey, when someone brings in all 11 players in the 100 for the knockout stages, and just don't use any of the players that got them there. So it'd be interesting to see if that can happen in the future. But they're kind of relying on the goodwill of the counties at the moment.
This is the thing with gentlemen's agreements. I think you said it yourself on Twitter that you need to close the loopholes before they're exploited. I mean, going back years to the Brian Rose declaration against Worcester, and the Steve Waugh doing a similar thing in the World Cup '99, scoring slowly against the West Indies so that they would qualify at New Zealand's expense.
Yeah,
they just need to close these loopholes straight away and say that unless you have played, I don't know, let's say 2 one-day cup games, you aren't eligible to play in the knockout games. Move on. There you go. Took me two seconds to come up with that rule. It's not difficult. Right, listeners' questions. Congratulations, obviously, to the Yeovil Invincibles for their victory in the other competition. I can imagine after their 3-year.
Did you say Yeovil Invincibles?
The Yeovil. That's what they called. That's what they called, isn't it? The Yeovil Invincibles. But
well,
I mean, as we're into the
football season, I don't think you can put Yeovil and Invincibles in the same sentence anymore. So,
but Steve, after their 3-year trophy drought, can you imagine how just happy their fans are? 3 long years they have had to wait for a trophy, and now they've finally got one. And I could just imagine
a men's trophy. The women won the first 2. Yeah.
Oh, did that? Oh, sorry. A men's trophy. Can you just imagine the agony that them Yeovil Invincibles fans have been putting themselves through, waiting for their men to win a trophy? I mean, I can imagine the Yeovil Invincible equivalent of Dan sat there at Lord's, twitching away during their finals day. I mean, the joy and passion shown by us up at Edgbaston, it must have paled in insignificance to what was going on at Lord's last Sunday. Rightio then, listeners' questions. Okay, the Railway Walker says, with Bartlett leaving, is it time to play Goldsworthy and or Banton in the last 3 matches ahead of him? With George getting a 3-year deal, this determine future contracts for young players who need certainty over their career. So the second part of that question we haven't addressed is, do we need to possibly factor in what he said there is you aren't going to keep these young players unless you give them a longer term contract?
I agree, but I think the thing with George Bartlett is he can't any longer be classed as a young player. He's probably into his 6th or 7th season with Somerset now.
Yeah.
So that's not a Goldsworthy or a James Rue or a Casey Aldridge or any in that grouping, is he? He's the next age grouping up. So I think you clearly you've got to look at it both financially and on the field, and say you want to keep your best players, and you've got to go with what the market's going. But Dan would be much better placed to sort of probably know what I would guess 3-year contracts are the norm. I'd imagine so.
Jacob Lunn is he says that Umi thinks Umi should open and Lammerby Goldsworthy, and either Lammerby Goldsworthy and Banton to come in the middle order.
Yep.
Agree with that, Jacob. Mike Underwood has been cheeky and said, should Dan Keenan publish an autobiography and include copies of all his emails? Well, I don't think you want all his emails, Mike.
No.
I'd imagine there's some pretty mundane run-of-the-mill emails in there, Dan. It's like, could you ensure this report is sent over to me by 5 o'clock Friday? Thanks. I need to send it out to Jim in HR or whatever. But
is Dad messaging him, what train are you getting to go to Derby next week or whatever? There'll be a lot of those.
I mean, there was another email this week, Dan, to the ECB regarding the absolutely farcical situation of September fixture scheduling again.
Yeah. The first thing was the One Day Cup knockouts again being either side of bank holiday weekend for the second year in a row. And I know, yes, the Hampshire-Worcestershire game did get moved, but that was only a one-off, which I think it's ridiculous. I think bank holiday weekend being blank is just mad when there's just that obvious opportunity to play the semis on that day. And then, this weekend's match starting Sunday is odd when it could be Saturday. I know there are people who always say, there are reasons like football and corporates, etc., but I don't know. I just think we've got to be playing as much county championship cricket on weekends as possible. And I think this seems perverse, just sort of waiting a day longer than we need to restart the season. And I think the following week could then be moved as well. The final point I made in that email was the last 2 rounds, they're currently running from Tuesday to Friday. They could run from Thursday to Sunday. Obviously, the issue is we're then going into October. The season would end on the 1st of October. I personally wouldn't have an issue with that. And I did do a poll on Twitter, and 82% of voters said that they'd be fine with that. And obviously that's not representative of the whole cricketing public. But I just think people really do want a bit more weekend cricket, and it is putting people off, getting memberships. And I see those sorts of frustrations a lot on social media. I think clubs need to be aware that we've got to be putting matches on as much as possible on weekends. And at the end of September, start of October, what difference is a couple of days going to make in terms of weather? It can be horrendous. Early October can be absolutely fine,
It's been the same for the last 3 or 4 years, though. There is little to no weekend championship cricket in September when the cricket season is finished.
The corporate market. The counties like to have midweek cricket so that they can get the corporate boxes taken and all of that. That's it's all down to money in the end.
But they had that with that's why I think the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday schedule.
But corporates don't like weekends.
No, but you've got your guaranteed, Thursday, Friday corporate sales.
Yeah. And you are not going to sell the fourth that much corporate on the 4th day of a championship game,
and potentially the third day as well. So it works out. It works out generally pretty good, I think, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I think they should do whatever they can to try they should almost try and ring fence championship cricket Thursday to Sunday and fit everything in around that if they can. That would be my way of doing it.
Yeah, it's almost possible to do that. I've tried to, because I'm a massive nerd, based on the international schedule and finals day now being announced, I've tried to come up with a schedule for next season, and it's near enough possible to have a weekend day or two in every championship game. It's not possible to have them all Thursday to Sunday, but you can get a weekend day or two in pretty much every championship game this year if you're clever with the scheduling, I think. So we'll have to wait and see. But one point I wanted to make as well is there are corporates on weekends. I remember in the Notts game, day one, which was a Sunday, I specifically looked and I could see that there were corporates in all the corporate areas of the ground. So I don't know if that's a different thing or what, but it does seem they do sell corporate stuff on Sundays. So I don't
know. Andy Cleve is still worried
from the Yeovil Invincibles.
From the Yeovil Invincibles, as headed into the final month of the season, will Lewis Gregory sign a new contract? Is he holding out for a white ball only deal? Brooks and Davis, I assume, are off, which leaves Umeed. We spoke last week about the Andy Umeed situation. I mean, he could be potentially in a similar situation to Bartlett, where we offer him a 1 or 2 year deal and he gets a 3-year deal somewhere else. I mean, we were all assuming that, if he gets offered a contract by us, he signs it, which is obviously not the case. And then, but Lewis Gregory still not having, or at least having not been announced that he's signed a new contract. Yeah, I would imagine now that he's back from the other competition that it would be, in his pigeonhole, ready to go.
Well, you'd hope so.
I think
very much hope so.
I think it's complicated by his injury history. On Sunday.
Brooks and I mean, if Steve Davis signs another contract, I'm going to streak naked across the county ground first game of next season, because I don't think there's any chance of that. I mean, Jack Brooks as well. I think from I heard him talk to a few people in the autographs after the last One Day Cup game. I think he's pretty much got to be packing it in at the end of the season. And I think that leaves for Andy Umeed and Lewis Gregory, I think, just as the only two that haven't had their futures settled yet. Andy Cleve, and again a bit more about selection for Hampshire. And I think
there was a good question about Anya Shrubsole and whether
be some. Yes. Well, didn't we talk about this last week? Because Kit Harris asked the same question, and we kind of came up with a block of the Somerset stand and a plaque in the Walk of Fame, in the walkway underneath the Somerset stand.
They need to update the Walk of Fame. That Trescothick needs to go in it now. Hildreth needs to go in it. There's not been any new ones for quite a while now. I think Langer and Mike Burns were the last ones to be added, sort of 2010, 11-ish. So. Yeah, needs to get Anya in there, Trescothick in there, and Hildreth in there, and Trigo as well.
Indeed.
And Bartlett, of course, now that he's gone.
And George Scott, while we're at it.
And Danny Lamb too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to be fair to Danny Lamb, he did pretty well for us. He
tried his best.
Yeah,
and he was.
Can I just say on that subject, I thought Dan's photo of Josh and his colour coordinated sweatband was absolutely brilliant. That was such a good spot. I love that, with the yellow wristband on the yellow arm coordinating with the sleeve. That was very well spotted, Dan, I think.
On the Mondrian kit. Yes, Dan, of course, I did mention it before you popped in, but you did the clean sweep of Metro Bank One Day Cup games.
I did, yeah. It was
something
great. I planned
that not even
Mr.
Gibson mentioned.
No, I didn't make it to Gosforth.
Yes, it was a convenient meeting you had that Friday morning, wasn't it, Anthony?
A very important meeting that I couldn't avoid.
Oh, of course you did.
It was a great day.
Make sure this meeting is on the Friday, the 11th of August. I do not want to have to go up to Durham.
I've got to go and have some supper. Yeah. So I'll see you all. See you all next time.
Always a pleasure.
Take care, Anthony.
See you next time. Safe travels up to the Ageas Bowl.
Indeed.
Yeah. So was that something you planned to do, or was it just just kind of worked out that you think, oh well, I've done one, I might as well carry on, and before you know it, you've done all 8.
I always planned it. Yeah, when the fixtures came out, my plan every season is always to go to every weekend's day of Championship cricket, and then try and see as close to all of the white ball games as possible by taking annual leave, etc. So I missed 3 T20s, but I managed to see all of the One Day Cup games, which is good. I have to admit, I did miss most of the first innings of Somerset Glamorgan because of the Women's World Cup final. So that's the one slight blot. But no, it was great. I really enjoyed just going around the country watching us play, and I knew obviously it would be a struggle for us at times. Obviously, it definitely was, in particular for a couple of the away trips. But there's 2 away wins in particular, Gosforth and Derby. They were really dominant wins, weren't they? They were really enjoyable matches. So really enjoyed it. And
it's a hell of a formula for 50 over cricket. Your opener scores 172 not out, isn't it? It really sort of helps the the equation.
It helps a bit.
Yeah, well played, Dan. I say.
Yeah, well played, Dan. Just don't tell Don Topley,
Cheers.
because apparently, you're not a real cricket fan, and you're not young, and you're not the target market, Dan.
I know
What
us
can you
youngsters
say?
meant to go into the hundreds.
I can't remember if I said this when you speak about the Glamorgan game in the Women's World Cup. I took my kids to the Glamorgan game, and I was sat. It was when Andy Umid started bowling, actually, funnily enough, and yeah, my little lad Theo came up with quite a funny joke, actually, which I'm going to finish the podcast with. Is so we were talking about. I'll talk to my little girl later about how England were playing in the World Cup final. She said, "I thought Somerset won the World Cup," and I said, "No, they won the T20." And my little lad Theo, bless me, said, "What's a T20? Is that when you drink 20 cups of tea?"
Excellent.
Yeah, great joke, Theo. Well done.
Great. So now you've got to
He's 8 years
explain
old.
to him the 100 is a bit harder by that token.
Oh God, I'll leave that to Don Topley. He can babysit my cat. Would I want Don to baby? Yeah, why not?
No, you don't want
Anyway, speaking of kids, they're in a bloody mini disco or somewhere that I need to go and.
You are desperate to
find
get
them.
to that mini disco, aren't you? You really are.
Well, I've missed the quiz. Apparently, there was a round on Dutch left arm spinners and all rounders, which I've missed. So,
You played your Joker as well.
Would it definitely? Right. Cheers, then, fellas.
All right, guys.
Best of luck to Tom Abel and the boys up at the Ageas Bowl over the weekend, and we will catch up with you next time.
See you later.
Cheers, guys.
Sarah.
Bye.